When you visit a friend or a family member, you'll never think that this is the last time we're going to see them. But in today's story, that is the case. But before we begin, if you're a fan of true crime stories or scary stories in general, then I highly suggest you subscribe to my YouTube channel, as that's all I do. And I upload once a week. But with all that being said, let's begin. In 1946, an 18-year-old girl named Paula Jean Welden was studying at Brenton College. Brenton College was located in Brenton, Vermont, where at the time Paula was studying botany. And if you don't know what botany is, it's basically the science behind plants. For example, how plants grow and what they do when they grow. But when Paula wasn't at college, she would be at home, in her parents' house, with her and her 3 younger sisters would live there, in Stamford, Connecticut. You see, Paula was very intelligent and very creative. She loved to paint and play the guitar. She also loved spending time outdoors, and she would always love to go on walks. And when she wanted to do more than walking, she would either go hiking or camping, which at this current time she was very experienced at. Now, moving a couple of months, Paula would decide that she wanted to go on a hike, which was quite normal at this point of her life. So she picked up the phone and rung her mother and told her that, "Hey mother, I'm going to go on a hike and I won't be too long," which obviously the mother said go ahead, because again Paula was quite experienced and the mother had no worries of her getting lost or in trouble. So once the two women said goodbye to each other, Paula started to get her stuff ready, until she remembered that she still had work tomorrow, but after tomorrow it was a weekend, so she could go on a hike after. So with all that planned out, she went to bed and woke up the next morning. She attended her shift at the university dining hall where she would work at. After a couple of hours, she was finally done with her shift, and once she cleaned up and packed up everything, she went straight to her dorm room. And as soon as she entered her dorm room, her roommate greeted her and the two women began to talk for a while. And it was at that point Paula told her roommate that she's going on a hike, and she told her roommate that she didn't really want to go alone and she was hoping that her roommate would come with her, but unfortunately her roommate declined. She said that she had other things to do and she had other plans with other friends. So Paula, a bit saddened, she said okay, that's fine, and the two women began to have another conversation. And now, so maybe 30 minutes of just talking to each other, Paula decided that it's time for me to get going on my hike. So in that afternoon, Paula got her stuff and she exited the campus about 2:30 p.m, where she would quickly begin her hike. And this is where the actual case begins, because days turned into weeks and there was no sign of Paula. And now her friends were starting to get worried that maybe Paula had gotten lost, or even worse. So after a long debate, they decided that let's call the police. So that's exactly what they did. The police arrived and began immediately investigating and started to ask Paula's friends on where they thought she could have went. A lot of her friends would tell the police that they had no idea where she could have went, but they commented on how they noticed that she really wasn't dressed well, because at the time it was December time, so the weather was cold and snow began to become more common during this time. And as Paula was leaving the campus, she was barely wearing a top and a cardigan. That wasn't the only thing that they thought was strange. They had also noticed that she had left a lot of her money that her parents gave her. Her parents would give her money for food and other emergencies, so the fact that she took a bit of it also confused Paula's friends. So that really left the police stumped, and a lot of officers thought that maybe she was running away, or maybe she had something hiding that she didn't want to tell her friends or family. But either way, the police turned to her roommate, who obviously was the last person to speak to Paula, and at first she really wasn't cooperating, which made the police a bit suspicious. And then reluctantly she told the police that Paula loved to hike, which of course everybody knew, but for some reason they never told the police that. But then she went on to explain that she always loved to hike on this path, which started close next to the college, then went to Massachusetts, and then the hiking path goes to Canada, which altogether makes a hike about 273 miles. So the police now, even though it's vague, they actually kind of have an idea of where she could be. But again, remember, this path is massive, and also this hike trail has many places where it's a narrow road surrounded by trees. But either way, the police thanked the girls and they began to follow this path, hoping that maybe she hasn't got too far because she fell in a ditch or something hopeful. So the police walked onto this path, and it wasn't long before they reached to a gas station. So they entered the gas station and quickly they were greeted by the owner of the gas station, Dan Forget. So the three men began to strike up a conversation, and the police would explain that this is why we're here and it would help if you have any information about this girl. So after the police explained to Dan what happened, Dan amazingly remembers that he saw Paula walking next to a gravel pit close to the main entrance of Barrington College, and it was around about 2:45 p.m. So the police looked at each other and were like, why would she go there? Because the gravel gravel pit's kind of off the path. So the police would look back at Dan. Are you sure you seen the girl that we're talking about? And Dan would insist that yes, I seen her, and the description you've given me of this girl is the exact match. So the police believed Dan and thanked Dan and began to head to this gravel pit. So they walked and got to this gravel pit, which was again off the path. When I mean off the path, it's not far from the path, it's just a bit of a detour, I guess. So once they got to the pit, they began to search around and hope that maybe Paula's still here or maybe she's stuck somewhere. But unfortunately, they couldn't find anything. So they continued walking into the path, and obviously they quickly found out that they're never going to find Paula this way. So both the men looked at each other and nodded to each other that this isn't a good idea and we should probably go back and get some help. So the officers headed back to the police station and began to talk to their colleagues about how strange this story is becoming, and they began to talk to each other about conspiracies and making conclusions of that she either ran away or she got kidnapped. But as they were talking, they got a report from a truck driver. His name was Louis Knapp, and he reported that he picked up a young girl hitchhiking along the route 67A, which that route was near the college. The report also said that he dropped her off at Route 9, which if you don't know, Route 9 is the way to the Long Trail, which was the trailer that Paula was heading to, because again her friends told the police that that's where she was going. Also, the truck driver said in the report, when the girl got inside of his truck, she seemed a bit dazed, and he also said in the report that she was constantly whispering to herself. So after the police read this report, they began a big search party and headed towards that trailer, and for hours they would just continue to search for Paula, but again they found nothing. And it was just then when everyone was starting to give up. The police got a phone call from an older woman. She was telling the police that there was a girl that was acting a bit weird and she was barely wearing any clothes. The woman also stated that she tried to call the girl over, but she didn't answer, and she was constantly ignoring her. Maybe on purpose, she doesn't know. So the officer on the phone asked her, "Where are you located?" And the woman on the other side of the line would say, "Brickford Hollow," which coincidentally was one of the places where if you kept going on the long trail you would end up at, but it's miles away. So the officer on the phone thanked the woman and told the searchers that Paula was last seen at this place. So everyone started to head there, including the police. So when the police got there, they began to ask around other people if they had seen Paula, which pretty quickly multiple people said, "Yes, we seen this girl just walking in a daze, wearing barely any clothes." Multiple witnesses would also say that they tried to call out for Paula, but again, just like the one on the phone, Paula ignored them. So the police kept on asking more questions, and then one of the pedestrians said the last time that they seen Paula was when she was walking straight into the long path trail again, and then unfortunately this would be the last credible sight of Paula. So the police would gather up the searchers that were with them, and they would continue to head into the long trail path. So now just imagine hundreds of searchers, including the police as well, searching for Paula and still not finding anything. Well, unfortunately that was the case. Paula's father would raise $5,000 in order for anyone to give any information about Paula's whereabouts, but unfortunately no one attempted to claim it. And by the point Paula started her hike, to when she got reported missing, to when police and searchers were searching for her, investigators believe that Paula's deceased and probably died from exposure. But again, that's what the investigators think. They don't actually know for sure. Another thing that investigators found weird was, after a couple of days Paula should have came back from a hike, her roommate was a bit worried, but she didn't want to report Paula missing to the police. Why, we don't know. But after 24 hours later, Paula's roommate would finally report to the police that Paula's missing, instead of reporting her straight away, which some investigators believe that she's a part of this disappearance. But again, this is just theories. Paula's disappearance began to attract a lot of people, predominantly newspapers, and once newspapers started to print out Paula's disappearance, people started to report seeing Paula across the East Coast. The first credible tip was from a waitress who worked at a little shop called Fall River, which the actual shop was located in Massachusetts. The waiter had claimed to serve a woman that had the exact descriptions of Paula. She had also said that the girl at the time was very upset and she was just crying on the table, but the waiter wouldn't ask any questions to the girl because she was a bit shy and she didn't want to get into her personal space. But after a bit of digging, investigators quickly found out that that wasn't Paula at all. But shortly after the waitress sighting, a train conductor reported that he had seen a woman and she was boarding on the train to South Carolina. The conductor gave vague information and vague evidence, and again this lead wasn't going nowhere. With all these leads going nowhere, the police began to investigate a man who worked as a lumberjacker who actually lived in the Long Trail, and his name was Fred Gardetta, because some investigators and officers were suspicious that maybe foul play was in this case, and the fact that he lived in the trail that Paula was last seen on gave the investigators a bit of a weird feeling. He would also keep switching his stories every time the investigators would ask, "What did you do on the day Paula disappeared?" So that's why they began to investigate him, and after some time of trying to push out some answers from Fred, he finally cracked, and unfortunately it wasn't what the police was looking for. You see, Fred told the police that he had seen Paula on the day she went missing, and he also told the police that he knows where the body is. But when the police actually pressured Fred to tell them where the body was, he cracked under pressure and told the police that he made it all up and he just wanted attention. So disappointed disappointingly, the police were hit with another dead end. But it doesn't end there, you see. Paula's dad actually became into another suspect. This started after the sighting of Paula in the Fall River. Her father went to Massachusetts to investigate himself. However, he didn't tell anybody that he was going there, and he was considered missing for 36 hours. His unexplained absence caused a bit of suspicion on him, and especially after it came out that Paula and him had a fight over a young man that Paula was dating at the time. And as a result, Paula did not speak to her dad for a while, and Paula didn't come home for the Thanksgiving break the week prior. Paula's dad obviously would deny these rumors and would actually move the blame to Paula's boyfriend. And I guess in a fit of anger, Paula's dad would accuse Paula's boyfriend of murdering Paula. And once again, since there's no evidence, these rumors would just end up as a dead end. So with no physical evidence pointing towards to what happened to Paula, some people have begun to look into the supernatural forces being the reason why Paula disappeared. And surprisingly, the area that Paula went missing in was known as the Barrington Triangle, which if you know the Bermuda Triangle, you would know that it's like a triangle shaped area that inside of it a lot of mysterious things happen, such as disappearances. And also many people believe that aliens have took Paula, but I'm not sure how serious you can take these claims. Paula's story began to rapidly increase in fame, and there was an actual movie and book inspired by a case, which if you do a bit of research on the internet you'll find it straight away. But unfortunately, still to this day, Paula has still not been found, and we'll probably never know what happened to Paula. But that's going to be it for today's video, guys. If you have enjoyed today's video, then I'd highly suggest you subscribe and like the video, and I upload once a week. And also share the video and help me reach to my 100 subscriber goal. And while you're at that, you might as well comment on your theories on what happened to Paula. But with all that being said, thank you for watching, and yeah, goodbye.